Hello, everyone. Welcome to GRC Talks, where we dive into the most challenging topics of governance, risk, and compliance in the era of massive AI adoption. I'm Asaf Katz, and today I'm so excited to host AJ Yawn. AJ is the Director of GRC Engineering at Aquia, founder at ByteChek, and recently wrote a book called GRC Engineering for AWS. Focusing on automating compliance in cloud environment, and also host takes, and has got about 41,000 LinkedIn followers. Right, so honored. Welcome, AJ.
Thank you, Asaf. It's awesome to be here. I'm excited for this cool conversation. I obviously love talking about GRC, so this is going to be fun.
Brilliant. So we had a quick chat just before around the book that you released, and you say it was going great. But say more about that. How's your life been since publishing?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely my sleep schedule has gotten better because I'm not staying up all night trying to write and edit and reread again and reread again, check all the code to make sure because I'm just was paranoid. When you write a book for a technical audience, you know you're going to have a lot of fact checkers, so I was making sure that everything was right. But it's been awesome, man. The feedback has been great from folks. It's really doing exactly what I hoped, which was help people really see not just theoretically about this GRC engineering movement, but really how to do it in an AWS environment. And sold way more books than I think I've already hit my goal that I said I wanted to sell for the year in the first 2 weeks. So
Wow.
it's just been awesome, man. I'm super appreciative, super grateful for the community through a lot of it on LinkedIn. And I really, was hoping to have an impact with the book. Like the book sells, the kind of Amazon had it as a bestseller. I don't know what that means, but it was a bestseller, so I grabbed a screenshot of it. But I really cared about like how can I impact a lot of people, hopefully some people entering their career, because I do think GRC engineering is the future, and it could help people have a really long, strong career in this field.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Sort of maybe what drove you to write the book, and uh, what is that help that you're trying to give away? What is the pain that GRC folks have are experiencing uh, that you obviously expressed so well, so that it resonated.
Yeah, I think so. Like going back, I got out of the army in 2017. I served 6 years in the army, made it to captain, and had a great time. But it was time to get out when I had my son on the way. And I joined this company called Coalfire, and started in their SOC 2 and ISO practice. There's only like 9 of us. And just the practice grew really fast. And most of our customers were hosted on AWS. And I quickly was like, hey, man, screenshots don't make sense. Like, this is weird. I published like my first ever public article on automating compliance on AWS back in 2018. So kind of fast forwarding 7 years later, you see this GRC engineering movement popping up where there's more roles popping up. I'm in a GRC engineering role, and I told Chris, my CEO, when he told me, like, this is my dream role, man. I've been talking about GRC engineering for 2 years. I started a company around this, X, Y, or 7 years, X, Y, and Z. So for me, the motivation was that this is a concept that I think has been needed in GRC for a very long time, and we've kind of been tiptoeing around it. You see a ton of innovation in this space, where there's a ton of money flowing into it because smart money realizes that this needs to be automated. But I think one of my bigger motivations is that I think traditional GRC professionals are at risk. You know this because you're an advisor and you're in conversations with the board. Every board, every CEO is being told, do more with less. AI is going to make your margins we used to care about margins at this level. They need to be 10 to 15% better in this world of AI, because that's all they're hearing as well. Hearing about the one person $1 billion company, right?
Yeah, I
So
mean, when Elon Musk bought Twitter and showed that he could basically run the same thing with a fifth of the
exactly.
personnel.
Exactly. So everybody's hearing that, right? And I think security has had a little bit of impact, but for the most part, you're seeing HR, marketing, IT areas getting laid off. But I think the spotlight's coming on security very soon. And when it does, GRC to me is primed for just saying, wait a second, this person only writes policies, reads policies, and then spits it out. That to me sounds a lot like, and everybody talks about what AI can't do, right? AI can read and analyze for sure. That's possible. So I think GRC pros are at risk. And part of my motivation was trying to give GRC professionals another option to preserve their career, because I think in the past it's been technical skills are optional. technical skills. You don't have to be technical. You can be a non-technical GRC professional. I think that's going away. I don't think that's possible anymore. You have to have technical skills to be successful in this new era of AI.
And how do you see this materializing? Is it something that it's coming in so fast. I mean, the adoption, technology, and you now have to change your systems and regulations, but the department or whatever you just helped to write the policies from is no longer there because it's been replaced or changed dramatically. I mean, how do they even keep up, technical or not?
I think the number one thing that GRC folks need to do so we have this whole movement over the last like 10 years of shifting security left, DevSecOps and all of this, and now you have controls in the CI/CD pipeline X, Y, and Z. GRC pros need to go and shift themselves left. Before doing anything, before a tool, before writing a script, before learning, just go find out, how does your security operations team work? How do your developers work? And not go find out for the sake of collecting evidence. Go find out for the sake of learning, because chances are they are using some of these AI tools already to do some activities. And you can't come in with the mindset of, we got to govern the AI before you know exactly what it's doing and what controls have already been put in place, because these are smart people. Like, you got to trust that the people in your company are really smart people. That's why they get paid to do what they do. So they've thought about some of this stuff, and maybe they didn't cover every box of the governance world, but I think a lot of times GRC professionals come in and they don't try to learn first of what's going on. It's just, I need evidence. Tell me why you do this. It doesn't match what SOC 2 says you're supposed to do. And it's like, that's the opposite mindset. So I think the first thing is, like, you got to just go learn, go figure out what's going on. And then before you come back and ask questions, go learn that tool. If they say, hey, we're using Amazon Bedrock on AWS to manage our AI, go learn about Bedrock. Go test it out, go figure out what it is. And then you can come back and say, hey, I read Bedrock allows you to do some guardrails. Are you guys doing that? No? Okay, well, why not? And you can have a better conversation to actually learn what's going on. And I think right now, because it's moving so fast, there's kind of that paralysis by analysis happening, where it's just like, I don't know what to do. I'm just overwhelmed. And instead, just go figure out, what are people doing to use these tools? Are your engineers using the vibe coding tools? Are they using Cursor or Windsurf? If so, what are some of the protections that you have around that, right? And I think that's the key, is you got to go learn first.
But just to maybe amplify what you said, I mean, using AI tools is not a recommendation. You see all the CEOs or CEO letters being posted where it's basically, telling employees, you're expected to use AI, otherwise you don't have a place here. So that accelerates everything even further. I mean, because I don't know, the AI tools, I'm seeing some of them are enterprise, but a lot of them are sort of self-serve. You come in, you connect your Google environment, your Outlook, whatever, and that's it. Now you have AI that does something, might create a nice presentation for you, but might also just learn everything about your business. It's interesting. Let's bring this to the ground a bit. When you talk about specifically AWS configurations, what is some sort of a misconfiguration that you see consistently happening across businesses that GRC people, if they just sort of dove deep into that, would be able to bring a lot of impact?
I think identity and access management has been a huge gap in the GRC world because of a lack of understanding of how identity and access management works. So traditional GRC pros are like, hey, let me get a list of the people that have access to AWS. And that question is, a very loaded question. And two, like, it's kind of tough to just say, like, these people have access, because on AWS, me and you both can have an account, but it doesn't matter if our accounts, it matters our permissions. There's like another layer to it. So I think that's an area that I would say, historically, if you look at a lot of the frameworks out there, whether it's SOC 2, PCI, NIST, ISO, their identity and access management is a huge aspect of these audits. I don't think we do a good enough job of actually verifying who has access to what. And in the world of cloud, we're not just talking about humans. It's systems having access to other systems. In the world of AI, it's the AI tool having access to certain pieces of data. And I think one of the things that I talk about in the book, and I just truly believe in, and I don't, this is not necessarily, this is obviously I'm AWS guy and that's my background, but like this is true on Azure, this is true on GCP. There are native services that the cloud providers have built to help you with these things, but GRC pros do not use them. And I can say that confidently. I worked with a bunch. They're using third-party tools, and they're not trying to use the things that already exist on their cloud provider.
So there's a lot of, it's interesting because there's a lot of IAM companies. So what do you think is the difference if the cloud providers provide an IAM built in? Why do people go to a third-party IAM?
I think it's control and more security features that they're comfortable with the Oktas, the Auth0s of this world. But even with those, again, like I think a lot of times people will say, okay, so you use Okta, just give me your list from Okta. But then you need to go to AWS and see like this group of database admins is tied to this IAM role on AWS that now has access to these things. But we're like stopping over here at Okta and not looking at the full, kind of saying, like, think about like a user journey, right? Like, it's like, I'm stopping at the start of the user journey and not thinking about all the other systems. And I think with something like AWS or Azure or whatever, there's tools you can use to get this data that tells you the truth about access, not just kind of the high level screenshot world that we live in. And I think that's the missing element, is not necessarily saying, all right, I want my engineers to get rid of Okta. No, but get more of the story about the people that are in this group, this admin group or whatever. And then not just the people, the systems. Why does your random EC2 instance have access to your marketing S3 bucket on the website? And why is it like, it's just little, but again, that's very hard for me as a GRC professional, as a human, to go find out. I'm not going to be able to find that. So that's where you got to use things that AWS has built and then write some scripts. And this is kind of self-serving, but like I wrote an open source tool that does some like automated access review with scripting and leveraging native services. But really all I did was say, oh, okay, Security Hub checks for some IAM stuff, some controls like root, access, MFA, access keys rotation. AWS has this thing called the IAM Access Analyzer. Does exactly what it sounds like. It analyzes IAM access. There's like 5 services that actually check this stuff regularly. So I just took all of those things, brought them together, spit it into some AI to Bedrock and said, hey, summarize this and tell me about my risk, and then send me a report every week to tell it. And like, to me, that's the next level of really saying, all right, like the easy answer, go get the list of users out of Okta. The actual real answer though, for security and actually understanding, do I have some weaknesses? I need to go look and see deeper into the data and not just stay at the surface.
And see it sounds like even if you want to build this tool, because there's so many connections that are not trivial to understand, that it's not that, as you said, this EC2 instance should not be talking to the marketing function on the website. Like that's something that's it requires a lot more intuition, or even sometimes to have a person talking to the other person and asking, hey, does it make sense? And then the other, whoever connected it doesn't want to disconnect until the other person provides an approval.
Right.
And it sounds like this whole, just the audit is just really the start. Now we have to go and find out. And everyone's working remotely. How do you?
Right. But that to me is like the exciting part about this future, because I think GRC, what you're supposed to do are be advisors to help, to have these conversations, but we don't get to have them because we're just asking for screenshots and we're not getting the deep enough data to say, hey, I just turned this thing on and I saw that Lambda function is writing to that S3 bucket. I wanted to know what's that about. And then you're like, actually, I have no clue, man. This dude, John, that left the company 3 years ago, wrote that. Let me ask the person who's bucketed. They're like, yeah, I don't know why John did that. I hate John. And then it's like, oh, we have this whole thing going on that everybody knows that shouldn't be there. And it's like, right. And it's like, so to me, if we embrace these GRC engineering principles, GRC professionals get to do what they really are paid to do, which are have those conversations, have those relationships to help companies be more secure within the kind of risk tolerance that they have. But I think we don't just we don't get to have those conversations no more because we're just caught up in the minutia of the job.
Yeah, and because no one wants to do a bad job. Eventually, you want to do
Yeah,
what you're told.
exactly.
It's direction, right? So it's all coming from the board, essentially, right? I've got more of a, I guess, business context to my relationships with board. It's always about, growth and sales, and uh, never in my life has any board asked me, hey, should we invest more in security?
Right.
It's
That
absolutely
didn't
bare
happen.
minimum. And it actually doesn't even happen until you're at a fairly advanced stage. And I think that even startups after a Series C or D really start to think seriously. Yeah, but even more traditional companies as well. I mean, it's not something you want to do. So what do you think? In your experience mentoring hundreds, why do boards tend to ignore it until there's a major breach? What's the, I guess, a controversial take on how
Yeah.
they should be approaching it versus how they do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's natural because if you're on the board, if you're in these conversations, the board has a fiduciary duty to the shareholders, to the company, to for it to make money and to be successful. So in those series, the C, the Series A, Series B realm, it's like, hey man, we got to grow. Now, will security help you grow? I'm of the opinion that yes, it will, but that's not necessarily a conversation the board's going to have. And I think the board conversations have been warped around security, around GRC, which is to me positive because it's important. And it's not necessarily that we need to be the best GRC thing. It's like, hey, I'm trying to go sell to the government. We need FedRAMP. Hey, I'm trying to sell to healthcare. We need HIPAA or high trust. I'm trying to we're going to process credit cards. We need PCI. And I think because of that mindset, if you think about that CISO or that CTO that's having that conversation, he now goes to the security person or GRC person and say, we need to pass this audit or else, because these guys are breathing down my neck and saying, if we get this HIPAA cert, we are now going to have 3 million more pipeline. And it's like the CISO knows that's not true. HIPAA's not going to unlock all this pipeline, but that's what the board thinks, and that's what they're focused on. So now if you kind of take that mindset from the board down, it turns into not an exercise to get secure, an exercise to get a piece of paper to go close deals. So GRC has turned into this marketing and sales function, and then a breach happens, and they're like, "Hey, I thought we were doing all of these
I have
things."
this. I'm PCI compliant. How did that
Right,
happen?
right. And it's like, well, we did everything we could to make the auditors feel good, but we weren't actually like, this is a cultural thing. And that's when you see those kind of post breach CISOs come in, and they all talk about culture and how we have to embrace. And it's because the culture didn't exist before. And I think, again, like this to me is the risk with GRC, because if we continue down this path where it's just a marketing and sales tool, and how much AI is improving and technology is improving. Right now, I see GRC professionals, and some GRC professionals get mad at me when I say this, that they're just middleware. You're just passing information between the external auditor and the internal teams, and you don't know anything about either side. You're just, hey, auditor asks a question, I go ask this guy. Hey, the auditor needs a screenshot and give it back to this guy, and it's just back and forth. And like, if that's all you're doing, I'm just going to empower the security engineer that you're asking the question to with an AI bot that knows SOC 2, and he can talk to the auditor. And then we can just do that. And to me, that's a big risk. So with GRC engineering, what you can do, going back to that scenario we just talked about, you can start to have real risk conversations. You can use AI and natural language processing to transform a control failure into a business outcome. And it's like, hey, board, we failed this control in SOC 2. Didn't mean anything this year. We still were able to close these deals, but our competitor, who is at 100 million more than us, they had this happen to them, and here's what happened to them. Here's the reputational damage because of this control failure. We need to invest. And I think if you can't have that conversation without real data. Right now, GRC professionals are not operating with good data. They're operating with screenshots to pass an audit. And to me, that's the board. To me, is not the problem in this. It's the board's doing exactly, they're abiding by their fiduciary duty. We need to make money. And in the early stages, this is why I don't think early stage companies should have to do SOC 2 or anything like that. I think it's a waste of time. I think what they should be doing is building a true program, And then the vendors that want to work with them should just ask them about very specific things. Hey man, how do you handle access? How do you handle data encryption? How do you do this? X, Y, and Z. Like but we lived in this world now where SOC 2 is such a big market, people are going to do it, whatever. But I think the boards are right. It's the CISOs, the GRC professionals that need to focus more on automating the collection of evidence to have risk conversations. The thing about all these compliance frameworks and governance and the GRC acronym, the R is the most important. The risk is most important. That's what the governance and the C is about, addressing risk. But we are only focused on the C now about the compliance. But if you can, boards care about risk. 100%. They're going to talk about risk to the business. We as GRC professionals, security professionals, are not doing a good job of communicating risk because it's just get the deal done with the SOC 2.
So let's sell the sizzle a bit here. I mean, let's say I do it. Let's say I'm a GRC manager and I'm adopting the methodology that you suggest, and now my processor engineer. What does my life look like? What's the impact? I mean, I would imagine that today with AI tools and automation, I want to feel like 10x, 100x my capacity. So what does it look like for them?
Yeah, so I actually for the folks listening, there's two things that I would encourage you to check out. One, this talk I did last week where I went through a case study, and I'm going to talk about it here in a second of the impact. And I have some stats and numbers. I'll give you the link so you can put it in the show notes. And then my book, their chapter 9 is a case study as well. And in there, I kind of put I think my experience over the last 5 years has helped me a lot of understanding in business impact, because I was the founder and CEO, and I had to have like very tense conversations about all of the numbers. And one thing I learned, software engineers are very expensive people. They are expensive, they cost a lot, and their time is very valuable. Cognitive load is a real thing for software engineers. So in my book, I talk about this case study, which is based on a true story, but I anonymized it, where the year before, the engineers, security operations folks spent 380 hours on their audit over a course of 15 to 20 meetings. So if you think about their salaries between $250, $300 something $1,000 and multiply that out, you're talking millions of dollars in audit meetings for people that do not have to do that. And then the CISO, the other impact of that was we lost an aspect of our roadmap because of that time wasted by the engineers, because they couldn't finish a sprint. And every engineering team has this. They have these trackers in their tools that show their velocity. So you can see, like, over a course of a 3-week period, I expect to get this many things done, right? That was taken away because of the audit. So the solution that I presented was this kind of self-documenting cloud that we put together using AWS native services, Config, Security Hub, CloudTrail, Audit Manager, wrote some Lambda functions to do some reporting, gave the auditor access, also integrated with GitLab where the software development team worked, because again, shifting left, SAS scans were run, DAS scans were run, container scans were being run. And what I said was like, well, getting JIRA tickets doesn't actually make sense to validate this, because the actual proof is in the repo. That's where peer reviews are happening, and that's where all the security testing is happening. So I can just write a script, a Python script that puts it in the pipeline and takes the information from those scans. And I know my team has said, the software engineers have said, hey, if certain security scans fail, this change gets rejected. The developer has to go back and fix it. So I know if something made it through production, it passed these tests. So I took all that data, wrote a script, and that's now being fed into Security Hub and Audit Manager. So now the engineers went from 15 meetings, 300 plus hours meeting with the auditors to 0. They don't have to meet with the auditors because the evidence is documenting. I can speak to it as a GRC professional to what actually is going on. And now all of my infrastructure changes. So if you think about a SOC 2, there's CC 6, 7, 8, 9, availability, confidentiality are all technical infrastructure controls. You also have the application control. That's about 60% of the controls are automatically documented, automated. Audit Manager collects the evidence daily, puts it in the folder for the auditors to view. Auditors are getting a report every week or whatever frequency people want. And then all you have to do really is now for the audit, HR stuff, policy stuff, contract stuff, legal stuff, that's going to be always very difficult to automate. There's going to be some human element there. But you have taken away the most expensive and operationally disruptive aspect of an audit, because those people this is the thing that I don't think GRC pros do a good job at. And again, my experience as a founder has created this product mindset in my head where I'm constantly thinking about users, because that's all I was thinking about for years. So now as a GRC person, I'm like, we shouldn't be thinking about our people as stakeholders. No, they're users. They have a user persona. They have their own needs. You know how, because you're an advisor, people put the little user persona, Sally the so-and-so. Like, we have users. We have Danny the developer who, and this is something that GRC professionals do. They take themselves too seriously. They forget that these security people, these security engineers, these software engineers, in their performance review, there's not one line item about a SOC 2 or an audit. It's not, that doesn't help them get promoted. There's a whole lot of other things that are going to help them get promoted. So they don't want to spend time with you. They don't want to do this. You are hindering them. So if you go to them with a plan that says, I'm going to eliminate the time that you got to spend with auditors. You'll never speak to an auditor again. You're going to have to spend maybe the next 4 weeks with me to figure this out and script it and get it done. But after that, I'll never talk to you again. You're done. And they'll be like, hell yeah, sign me up. The CTO will say, sign me up. The CISO will say, sign me up, because they know the amount of time we are wasting by pulling these people into these meetings, into these Zoom calls. And people don't understand, a 1 hour Zoom call for a software engineer, you kill 3 hours of their day because of the context switching, the prep, the after. Software engineers need to be heads down coding all day. That's all they need to be doing. The less meetings, the better. But we created this meeting culture post-COVID with Zooms and everything. And I think GRC professionals are the worst offenders. And I don't think we think about it from that perspective. That's why in the case study, I was like, let me put my founder hat on and just think about time. 380 hours, 15 meetings for software engineers and security engineers, millions of dollars right there alone is being wasted. And that's, to me, it was like a mid-sized company. So think like, 1,500, 2,000 people. You start thinking about like big companies, oh my, and they have multiple products. I mean, it's nasty.
I think there's actually another aspect to what you're saying. I mean, all that time that you waste doing audits and meetings where no one wants to be in, that's just bad marketing for GRC. So when you have something important, you've already consumed I guess you have some tokens or credits that you can get from.
It's tough to build relationships that way when everybody feels like you're wasting their time.
It sounds like there's really no choice, but you have to dive in and adopt automation and AI. If you're in GRC, there's no way around it.
Yeah, it used to be optional to be technical, to try not to automate. It's that those days are over. And again, it's just like the tools are forcing our hands. The conversations the board and the CEOs are having are forcing everybody's being told, do more with less. It's just a reality. And I know people don't want to hear that, like, oh, AI is going to get rid of some jobs. It is. Like, these tools are really good. So you have to become empowered with them. And then, you have to understand how they work, because I think the future of GRC is AI governance. When we have agents talking to agents, you got to know how the agent was built. You got to understand things like temperature. You got to understand things like guardrails. You got to understand things that train the models of how they're working. And that you can't even get there if you're still asking for screenshots of security groups on AWS.
AJ, I gotta ask you. I ask everybody about this because I'm really, personally very worried about this.
Yeah.
With incidents that happened after the suicide of this teenager with character AI, and multiple hacks that happened. I think there was the McDonald's incident just now. There's we sort of expect to have the regulators and the government have our back. But then it seems like regulation and governance is so slow already. But now the technological development is way faster. So when you look ahead at 2026, you look at the EU AI Act and all the initiatives that are happening in the US and broadly. How do you predict AI will reshape GRC engineering? I mean, do you see it automating 80% of our activity, evidence collection, etc., or is it going to be just compliance nightmare all over?
I think It's going to evolve for sure. Like we're going to get to a world where, yeah, hopefully screenshots are gone and we automated a lot of that, but we're going to have to audit the automation. We're going to have to audit the agents, and I think there's some. I've been pleasantly surprised at the early adoption of this ISO 42001 cert. That's the AI governance one. And I got a buddy who runs an ISO shop, and he's been certifying a lot of folks. And I'm seeing the public repository of more and more companies. And you know how it is, like Microsoft or Amazon or somebody gets it, then then they say all their vendors have to get it, then everybody. So I'm actually, I did not think when I started seeing all the governance stuff pop around, I'm like, oh, here we go. Like government's going to try to like stifle innovation, and I didn't think people were going to adopt it. I just think people, and I thought it was going to be like kind of like BS, to be frank. But I've been pleasantly surprised, and I think that's an opportunity for GRC professionals in 2026 and beyond. And this is why, to me, you have to embrace GRC engineering now so that you can have the mental bandwidth and space to help with AI governance, because very quickly boards are going to start asking about that. They're going to say, hey, an ISO 42001 is going to become, I think, the SOC 2 of the future, because it's not going to be about the actual stuff in your, it's going to be about the, how are you managing your, how do you choose? I mean, one of the controls in there is like, which models did you choose and why? Like those are going to be the questions that become way more important versus are you on AWS or Azure? It's gonna be like, whatever, man. Like we'll figure that out later. The agent will get that information. But what I want to know is what agent framework are you using? What model are you using? Are you using Bedrock? Did you use everything out of the box from this vendor? Because every vendor now is an AI tool, right? Everybody has these AI features, and if you see kind of the trend, the entry level AI feature, they train on your data, they use your data, they're doing all these things. If you pay a little bit more, you get it
You
segmented,
won't.
right? Quote unquote. So that's the. I think we're going to see that evolution. I think ISO 42001 is going to be that thing that increases that adoption, and then obviously I think the EU does a much better job when it comes to enforcing some of these things, whether it's GDPR and then this EU AI Act. I think they'll do a much better job than the US. I think ISO 42001 will become this commercial forcing function to get people to think about AI governance. I, I don't think ISO in itself is a super technical framework, but I do respect the framework. I think the requirement to have an ISO lead auditor has to be the one to sign it off on it, and they have to go through training. The aspect of observation surveillance audits, where the actual certifying body comes out and watches you perform an audit. So for anybody that's doing ISO 42001, they had to get certified to do that. So they had to actually go through and say, all right, they're doing it according. So I think there's some legitimacy to establishing those AI governance programs. And to me, another opportunity for GRC pros, get in there early. Start going to have these conversations now. Go tell your CISO, hey man, are we thinking about ISO 42001? Because that's going to be a carrot you can use to get some of the other things that you want to get done. That's where I think like SOC 2 and all these other ones used to be these carrots to get budget. Oh, we failed our SOC 2, so let me buy this tool. But now all the tools, like you said earlier, are self-service. You just go get them. So that has it. But AI governance is going to be this new thing to say, hey man, like I get it. We want to, slash costs by 20% and increase margins, but we need to do it smart. Let's talk about AI governance before we go down this path. And that to me is going to help people move faster, but help GRC people get in the right conversation for sure. So I think if you would ask me this question a month ago, I would have been much more bearish on AI governance in the future. But I think I've just been pleasantly surprised by what ISO 42001 has been able to do, and I'm seeing bigger names get it, and I just know how the compliance space is. It's copycat. Everybody.
Yeah. I think I'm pleasantly surprised by how quickly, when I talk to people, they understand the difference between things like self-hosted LLM versus,
Yeah.
the Claude, ChatGPT, Groks of the world.
Yep.
And I think that understanding that really helps with adoption, because you now understand that it's safe. I think probably presents other challenges, but at least you know the language. It's not like there's a sort of being deterred by the fact that you're even using AI. We're not. So it's not that. It's just how you use it. Yeah, and it's a gateway for GRC folks to become more technical. I think much faster, because because you don't really have to be that technical today. We have AI that helps you, right? It's like,
Exactly. I was telling somebody yesterday, I've learned so much over the last 6 months because of these AI tools. Like my speed at which I can learn things has accelerated, and I'm addicted to learning. I just love learning new things. So like it's just like, and I have like all these crazy workflows now of how I'm using these tools. But I'm like, I have ChatGPT create me a deep research article. I'll go throw it in Google Notebook LLM to get a podcast, and then I'll have it do a mind map for me. And then I'm listening. I'm trying out things in Windsurf. I'm like, hey, I just watched a video on Bedrock multi-agent workflows, and then I threw that into ChatGPT, created a podcast, and then I put it in Windsurf and was like, let's just try this out. And I built, I'm like, I just did that in like 12 hours. That would have took me 12 months 2 years ago. And like one other thing that's helping me too, I think, with all these tools, and I hope people don't have to become founders to figure this out, but as a founder, my job, and then after I sold the company, product leader, like I led engineers, I led designers, I led product managers. So talking to these AI tools is the same thing to me. It's literally, I'm just talking to engineers again. So communication is so important. And like people are like, oh, I can't use these tools. And I'm like, I don't want to be mean, man, but it's probably you're not your prompt. You're probably not prompting it right. But like I've now been able to distill 5 years of talking to engineers, doing roadmaps, doing all this product stuff into just conversations with AI agents. And the AI agents don't take PTO. They don't have family problems. They don't have anything going on. And it's just, to me, it's been awesome because you can just like the rate of learning with these tools. I think that's the thing that I want GRC professionals to do is say like, man, like maybe 5 years ago, learning Python would be very hard. Today, you can be writing your first Python script in hours and feel comfortable about it. And it's wild. It's insane. I feel like we're living in the best time to be alive from a technology.
Yeah, and just lastly, I think one of the things that happens in organization is people are afraid to ask stupid questions. They want to come up.
Yeah.
So now you can ask a question, and you can ask it again and again and again until you understand, right?
Yep.
I think that's really really important. AJ, thank you so much for your time. I mean, we're gonna plug in the link to your book.
Yeah.
We're gonna get a couple copies for us. And thank you so much. Our listeners are okay to reach out on LinkedIn if
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I'm active on LinkedIn. It's probably it's the only platform I'm really active and have some great conversations. So please reach out.
40,000 followers, man. That's well done. Well done. Really.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun to grow a little community on there, and I think LinkedIn's an underutilized tool for professionals, especially in cyber. I think there's a lot of cool stuff you can do.
Let's talk about more of that in some other time. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back next week.